Even in what has been a very difficult season for the New York Rangers, the team still does have several strong candidates for the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award, who the listeners decide should take home the award.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1276 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So what we're doing today, I guess in some ways, is a little bit of a part two, a continuation of the episode that came out on Tuesday, or rather, I believe it was on Monday. We did an episode where we gave out the fictitious Zero Effort Award. It's just what it sounds like. As voted on by you guys, the loyal listeners of Locked On New York Rangers, we decided which Ranger candidates, or rather, which Ranger players are the strongest candidates for the Zero Effort Award, and gave out the award in accordance with that. And today, we're going to take a look at the very real, very prestigious Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. And I think most Ranger fans are familiar with this, and they know what it is and what it's made to represent. But for anybody that might be new to the Rangers, might be new to hockey, basically it is an award presented in the honor of the late former New York City Police Department patrolman Stephen McDonald. Stephen McDonald was shot and paralyzed in the line of duty in 1986 and passed away in 2017. But for years and years that went by there, he was obviously a massive Ranger fan, and this award was given out on his behalf. It's made to go to the player that best exemplifies going above and beyond the call of duty. And there have been a lot of different Rangers that have won it over the years, superstar players, some role players as well, but it's always a really nice thing. You can tell that it clearly means a lot, first of all, to the McDonald family. Secondly, of course, to the players and certainly the fans as well. I think everybody takes this very seriously, as well they should. Just a great award, and one that, there's no real stats behind it. It's just kind of the eye test, who's going out there and really bringing it and really busting it every single night. And like I said, I do think it means a lot to these players, and certainly whoever wins the award, it's going to mean a lot to that individual as well. But what I wanted to do today, we're basically going to format this episode the same way we did for the Zero Effort Award. We're going to have comments from you guys, everybody that responded to my tweet about who should win the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. We're going to go player by player here. You guys probably have an idea of the players that are leading the way as far as the votes are concerned for the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. You probably also have an idea of some players who very clearly did not get a lot of votes as it pertains to this award. But with all that said, the real voting is going on right now, and you can vote on it online, and very curious to see who ultimately brings home this award in real life. But with no further ado, let's go ahead and focus in on your comments and talk about the players that you guys believe are strong candidates for this award. And we begin with Will Cuylle. I think somebody who certainly is one of, if not the favorite to win this award. But this is what you guys are saying about Will Cuylle and his candidacy. 10 Minutes says, as far as who should win this award, us, the fans, if you survived watching all 60 minutes of the Flames game, MSG should send you a personalized thank you card. I voted for Cuylle. Yeah, I'm still waiting for my personalized thank you card because that was a rough game, but 10 Minutes eventually did give the nod to Will Cuylle there, as did Ray Baker. Ray says, Willie Cools, the only guy who seems to care. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's not much of one. When you think of back to that 4-15 stretch, he was the only guy going out there and bringing it every single night and looking like he was doing anything he could to give the Rangers a win, or at least give them a chance to win. James Thomas says, the only player who you can argue for is Cuylle. Again, I think there's some other candidates too, but you vote for Cuylle. I'm not going to argue with anybody who does that. Michael says, Will Cuylle is 100% every night, second in the league in hits, been probably the lone bright spot this year. Yeah, I noticed the other day, Will Cuylle is indeed second in the league in hits, although I believe he's now tied for second in the league with hits. And the player who is ahead of Cuylle and the rest of the league, he leads Cuylle by 100 hits. Somebody on the Canucks, I want to say. trying to remember who it was. I thought I had it written down here somewhere, but possibly not. But regardless, you get the idea. Will Cuylle goes out there and brings it every night and obviously throws the body. And Michael's certainly recognizing that. We've also got a comment here from Greg Siegel. Says, has to be Cuylle, but Brodzinski definitely deserves to be in the conversation. I agree. BCop23 says, it's Cuylle. It's not close. I can't even think of another deserving player. There's a couple. I mean, if you dig a little bit deeper, although, again, Cuylle, if he's at the top of your list, no arguments from me. Ali says, I picked Cuylle because even when it looked like no one cared, he did. Holly says, Cuylle never gave up all year. Love his heart and grit. Gave it all every game. He does. He's one of the few guys that you don't have to worry about, giving you an honest effort every single night. Big Red says, Cuylle every day and twice on Sunday. The Blue Line Blue Shirts says, I voted for Cuylle. He checks all the boxes 100%, but I will tell you, Sam Carrick was right there in the running for me. Honorable mention would 1,000% be Sam Rosen. Yeah, I probably should have given Sam Rosen his own little section while doing this because a lot of you guys really wanted to vote for him. And as far as I know, this does indeed have to go to a player. But if it didn't, yeah, Sam Rosen's a great choice. The fans would be a great choice. But if it's a player, Cuylle, Carrick, a lot of the guys that are racking up the votes here, all good choices. And then we've got Vanessa Ingasio. Cuylle, not even a hard question this season. And then Whistle says, anyone but Cuylle would probably be an injustice. And again, I would not go quite that far, but I certainly understand where all these Cuylle fans are coming from. Sam Carrick, he got mentioned a couple of times there in the Cuylle section as well. And a couple of voters want to go with him. We got a vote here from Jerry O. He says, Sam Carrick, hands down, you take the good with the bad, penalties, but the guy is obviously working hard every night. Tony says Sam Carrick or Will Cuylle, I would be fine with either one. Honorable mention to Will Borgen also. Yeah, Borgen got a couple of mentions in this, and I think maybe part of the reason why he didn't get a couple more is that he just hasn't been here for the entire season, but Borgen's not a bad candidate either. And then we've got Cindy, Hamada, Cuylle or Carrick, both quietly do their job day in and day out. Yeah, honest effort. I mean, we're at the point now where that's all Ranger fans want. I mean, forget about like points and offensive production and all this stuff. Just show us that you care. Show us that you're giving an effort every single night. We'll go ahead and shift our attention now to Jonny Brodzinski. He got some votes here as well. MP says Jonny Brodzinski is the only answer. James says, I feel it should be Will Cuylle, but I would be really happy to see Jonny Brodzinski get it. He always plays hard despite limited opportunity, and he's a much more solid player than he gets credit for. I 100% agree with all of that. And one other thing that I'll throw out there, with Will Cuylle, I feel like the Rangers are going to want to lock him up, going to want to keep him on the team for a long time. He'll have a chance, a very good chance to win this award in the future. And I'm not saying that means that he couldn't or shouldn't win it now, but this might be Brodzinski's only shot at it. He's under contract for one more year. He is on the north side of 30. So I kind of wish it would be Brodzinski, even though maybe the better vote is Cuylle. I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up. We got another comment here from Brody, who also appears to be a Jonny Brodzinski fan. Brody says, I picked Brodzinski not just because he's my favorite. He may not be a big name player making millions, but he was a player who went from playing 2 games to being scratched 6 to now being a regular in the lineup. Even though he typically plays 10 minutes a night, he still finds a way to score and put points on the board. While the team was struggling, he was one of the few to have a plus rating. He's a leader to the younger guys, trying to find their home place on the roster. 100% agree with all of this. Brodzinski, nothing ever comes easy, man. He's always the guy that somebody's got to come out of the lineup. He's always one of the candidates, but he's played very well. And I hope that at this point, especially when you consider the lack of effort, the lack of production that a lot of the veteran high-paid players have given you this season, I hope that Brodzinski, remains in the lineup going forward pretty much for the rest of the season. I think he's certainly earned that, and very curious to see how the Rangers line up against the Kings. As I say that, I'm realizing when this episode drops, that game will have already happened, but for the time being, it's Tuesday afternoon as I'm recording this. So, yeah, I hope Brodzinski maintains his spot, hopefully with JT Miller and Alexis Lafreniere. We'll see what happens there. Michael Andrews, another vote for Brodzinski. Johnny B for always showing up and being a leader for the youth. Yeah, that's a very underrated aspect, too. It's great that he's kind of taken some of those guys under his wing and essentially continued to be their captain. He was their captain with Hartford and seems to be kind of embracing that role with the Rangers, even though it's kind of an unofficial role at this point. So we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. There's a couple other players that got a decent amount of votes here. And then at the end of the episode, we'll have our top 5 and decide who should ultimately win the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. So we'll do all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Trade Coffee. If you're like a lot of people, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee, but it's easy to get tired of settling for grocery store brands that you feel just are not cutting it. That's why many turn to Trade, and many believe their coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they will handpick the perfect match just for you. The subscription makes it so easy. No more last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever just happens to be on the shelf. And if you don't love your first bag, no worries whatsoever. Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl for 40% off of your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. All right, we just want to go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers, but we do have to give a big shout out, as always, to the everydayers for continuing to, go through this Ranger season. I mean, that's basically the long and short of it. But yeah, obviously, it means a lot that you guys continue to support this podcast in spite of everything that's gone on this season. In our next episode, we're breaking down whatever happens on the Friday night matchup for the Rangers. We're actually going to do a Saturday episode rather than Friday, given the fact that the Friday game, I want to say, starts at 10 p.m. So it's going to be pretty late. I mean, by the time that game's over, it's going to be Saturday anyway. So there will be a Saturday episode rather than a Friday episode this week. But for right now, let's go ahead and continue reading some of your comments here as far as guys that you think are, strong candidates for the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. We got a vote here for Will Borgen. There were a couple people that mentioned Borgen here and there as kind of like an honorable mention, or my second or third choice would be Will Borgen. But Evan Emmerich had a question: how come nobody is saying Will Borgen? And again, I talked about this earlier. I think it's just the simple fact that, he came over in the middle of the season, although he has now played 40 games with the Rangers, which is more than I thought. It's been a while since that trade actually occurred. And overall, I think he's mostly done a nice job. He's had some rough games here and there, as have all of the Ranger defensemen. But I think for the most part, that was a nice pickup and a nice contract extension for Will Borgen and the New York Rangers. We got some love for the goalies as well. Igor and Quick both getting a couple of votes here for the extra effort. Is this better, says Igor Shesterkin, and it's not close. Without him, we're fighting for the first overall pick in this year's draft. And Matthew Burke says Igor for bailing their butts out. Yeah, so as it pertains to both of these comments here, interesting points made. I do feel like this is Igor Shesterkin's weakest season of his NHL career. But with that said, I think, is this better here? Hit on something that is very true. It could be worse, and it very well might be worse with a lesser goalie than Igor Shesterkin. There's been games where Igor just hasn't had it, and he's gotten yanked out of the game about midway through. He's let in a couple goals that you'd like to see him stop, but he's also won them some games that they had literally zero business winning. So I think he kind of, I don't know. I mean, to me, he's not that high on the list for this award. He's probably not in my top 5, but he might be a stronger candidate than a lot of us are maybe giving him credit for, just given everything that he's gone through this year. There was a stat during one of the more recent Ranger games where he, by far, has faced the most high danger scoring opportunities against. So that's not the entire reason why his numbers are down this year, but you better believe that's part of the reason why his numbers are down this year. So he wouldn't be my pick, but Igor is probably, like I said, a stronger candidate than you might initially realize. A couple of votes here for Jonathan Quick as well. Justino says, why is everyone forgetting about Quick? And Rangers Hockey says, I voted for Quick, but anyone on the fourth line. Yeah, Quick you could make a case for. I feel like with Quick, it would almost be more as like a leadership kind of an award, and in a way, almost like a lifetime achievement award. It would just be a really nice thing to give this award to Jonathan Quick. I mean, who would have thought for a second, as recently as 2 years ago, when the Rangers first signed Quick, or right before they signed him, that not only would Quick be a member of the New York Rangers, not only would he end up being here for 3 seasons, which he will be now that he signed that extension, but that, yeah, he would win the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card, but overall, I think he's done a nice job. Like Igor, his numbers are down this year, but again, I think that's due in equal parts to the performance of the Rangers defensively, and specifically the defenseman, as much as it is to, Jonathan Quick having like a massive step back. I think it's more due to the former than the latter. So a little bit of love for the goalies. That's always a good thing. And then another very popular choice among Ranger fans who commented on this Twitter post was, of course, Matt Rempe. Rempe got a decent amount of mentions here, decent amount of love from the fans. Monica Norcross says, Rempe brings it every shift, goes to every optional skate, works to improve all summer, and on breaks, keeps up a great attitude despite struggles with penalties and the learning curve, is happy to get whatever time on the ice he can get, and fights for this team no matter what. Yeah, I mean, I think that hits the nail on the head right there. Matt Rempe has brought it every single night, and there's still some people that doubt him, and even some Ranger fans that don't really get all the hype, that he's not really their cup of tea or whatever. But if you don't notice how hard he's working recently, and if you don't notice the improvements that he's made from last year to this year, then I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, it's been evident. His skating has come a long way. I think he's doing his best to, hit people, but do so clean and do so in a way that's not going to attract attention from the referees, even though he continues to get penalized for what are clean hits. And yeah, there were times early in his career where he had some hits that crossed the line. He got suspended, and rightfully so, but he did his time. It shouldn't be continuing to follow him game in and game out, but this dude's bringing it, and I do think there is something to that where his teammates seem to really like him. There was something else that I should mention about Rempe here. This was per a tweet from Vince Mercogliano. The Rangers had a huddle at the end of practice or whatever, and I guess Matt Rempe was in the middle, and he was breaking it down. And at the end, all the players kind of congratulated him. So I don't know what that was. I mean, there's been not any news about a new contract. There hasn't been any news about him winning the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award, but I do wonder what that was. Was it the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award? See, that wouldn't make sense either, though, because they're still voting on going for that. So I'm not really sure what that was. Maybe someday we'll find out. But here's another vote for Rempe that comes to us from Eileen. Rempe, he's really put in so much effort, and it's visible every shift, made a huge impact the last few months, and his line has been keeping us above water. Yeah, that fourth line, the personnel has changed. Adam Edstrom was there for a while, and, VZ before he got traded. And, these days I was going to say Carrick, but he's mostly been playing on the third line. And you've got guys like Brodzinski out there, although he's been moved up the lineup too. It feels like, despite there being a revolving door there, Matt Rempe has been the one constant. And regardless of who's there, that fourth line seems to do their end of the deal, so to speak. Ron says, my pick is Rempe. He always shows up for optional skate, works his butt off every game even with limited minutes and ref persecution. Love that. Loves his team, loves the game, is always growing. He deserves it. Honorable mentions for Cuylle, Borgen, and Shesty. Tyler Herman says, to be honest, Matt Rempe, not the best player for sure, but if you are giving the award for what it's meant for, which is the player who leaves it all on the ice every shift, Rempe feels like the only option. Honorable mention to Will Cuylle, Igor Shesterkin, and Sam Carrick. And TJ Smith says, Cuylle, when it comes to every game on ice, he'd be my choice, but the extra effort on an everyday basis is definitely Rempe. He's first on and last off for practices, was sick with the flu, bad enough to be scratched, and still skated in the AM with the skills coach. Yeah, I remember that. He was scratched that night, and some people were losing their minds because they thought he was a healthy scratch. No, he was sick. He was under the weather, but for him to still go out there in the morning and, hey, he could have stayed home. Hey, I'm sick, whatever. He still wants to go out there and try to get some work in. I think you got to give him some credit for that. We've also got a couple of comments here. This is the random section where people throw out some kind of unique answers, so to speak. We got Coco Latte, who says Sam Rosen. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I should have given Sam Rosen his own pick. That's not the last time we're going to hear somebody wanting to vote for Sam Rosen. Atlanta Ranger says, I would not award one this year. And Jimmy Godfrey has a similar take. Not sure there is one this year. If you look hard enough, you can find one. We've got some good candidates. B. Olson 52 says Sam Rosen, case closed. Mario says Cools, Rempe, Carrick, Broads, should be the only 4 to choose from. Those are maybe the 4 best choices. You could certainly make that case. KJ17 says they should give it to Sam. I assume KJ means Sam Rosen rather than Sam Carrick, and goes on to say would be pretty cool, but the only answer is Cuylle with maybe Carrick as a distant runner-up. JP says Cuylle, Sam Rosen, or Rempe. Cuylle worked his way into a top 6 role, plays tough, incredible effort every game, and plays with intensity every game. Rempe is one of the hardest workers on the team and gives 110% every time he touches the ice. Team loves him too. He does seem to be a popular player in that group. Pete says, the fans, you talk about extra effort. Yeah, no joke, Pete. This has been something else this season. Don Scuba says, it's Sam Rosen and us, the fans, for watching this beautiful season of hockey. Janet Woodward says, Zach Jones, when they let him play. Yeah, Jones brings it. I mean, he's got people, he's got his fans, he's got his critics for sure, but I think he's earned his spot in the lineup down the stretch here. Patrick Alexander says, Cuylle, Igor Rempe, really the only options. JT Miller, but he wasn't on the team all year round. Anyone else can win the zero effort award. Anybody except those 4. I love it. John T. Macklin says, Sam Rosen. No one on this team deserves an award for anything they have done on the ice. If there was ever a year to give it to a non-player, this is it. I do agree with those sentiments. Although I think it does go to a player every year. At least that's been the case since it came into existence. And I think it will go to a player this season. Andrew Mason, this is good, says Trouba for freeing us from that horrendous contract. I don't think Trouba did that on purpose. Trouba had a full no-move clause that became a partial no-move clause this season, and so he didn't really have a say in the matter. Although I think that he had to waive his clause to go to Anaheim, because if he didn't do that, he would have been placed on waivers, and if that happened, he could have been claimed by anybody. So I think that's kind of how they strong-armed Trouba into going to Anaheim. Brad Power says Sam Rosen brings it all day, every day. Yes, he does. And Sam Rosen could go another year if he wanted to. But I think with Sam, he's trying to get out too early rather than too late, and I can certainly respect that and understand that. Brad Berkowitz says, the person that deserves it the most is Sam Rosen. He might be winning this. The person that deserves it the most is Sam Rosen. He has been stellar again this year and has seen a bunch of terrible hockey. Think outside the box and vote for Sam. If not, Will Cuylle. And then James LeBanc says, Igor's been the best player. Broads plays hard. Trocheck hasn't gotten lost on the way to the arena. It is slim pickings, LOL. Indeed, it is slim pickings. Last year, you could have made a case for so many different players. And this year, you can make more cases for the zero effort award than you can for the Stephen McDonald extra effort award. And I think that pretty much says everything. So in just a second, we're going to keep everything rolling. We're going to narrow this down to a top 5. I'm going to add my 2 cents, as I've kind of been doing throughout the episode, and come up with a consensus top 5 and then a consensus winner of the award. And we will go ahead and do that in just a second. All right, we just want to go ahead and let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs. Put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. We've all been in a spot where we need the right hire, like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all that you need. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers and hopefully try to narrow this down to a top 5. Again, I'm kind of going with the sentiments of the fans, and I'm kind of adding my input as well here. Number 5, I'm going to go with Will Borgen. And as we mentioned kind of off and on when his name would come up throughout this episode, the one thing that hurts him, very simple fact that he hasn't been here the entire season. I don't think he'll win it this year, but I do feel like he could be a solid candidate in seasons to come. He did sign that contract extension with the Rangers. I want to say, 4 years at like $4.1 million, whatever it was, somewhere in that ballpark. He's done a really nice job. And I feel like the reason why, not all, but most Ranger fans quickly took to Will Borgen, quickly warmed up to Will Borgen, and mostly liked the contract. There were a couple of people that said, like, that contract might be, a year too long, or maybe it's a couple dollars too much, or a couple $100,000 too much, whatever you want to call it. But I think the reason why people like him is because we're starved for a defenseman like this. Certainly at the start of this season. We're starved for a guy that's just going to stick his nose in there, battle along the boards, take the body, try to defend the front of the net. Just the little things that you mostly expect defensemen to do, but that so many Ranger defensemen just could not do. He takes care of the puck as well. He's not known as like an offensive defenseman, but I think he moves the puck all right, makes some good passes. And he's actually had some offense to his game since coming to the Rangers. 11 points in 40 games for Borgen with the Rangers after just 2 in 33 games with the Kraken. And he's also a +6 with the Rangers after being a -13 with the Kraken. So I do think Will Borgen is a very good choice. Number 4, we're going to go 4, 3, and 2. Honestly, could have gone in any order. But again, I'm taking in my own thoughts as well as the votes that I saw these players receive. Number 4, we're going to go with Jonny Brodzinski. And Brodzinski, to me, a big part of the reason why he wins this is the intangibles and just kind of the path that he took to get here. The intangibles being the fact that, by all accounts, he's really stepped up as a leader for the young guys on this team, the guys that are just getting used to NHL hockey. Players like Brian Othman, Will Cuylle said as much. There was a story out on Jonny Brodzinski and his ability to kind of take these guys under his wing and lead the way for them early in their NHL careers, and that's obviously awesome to see. I mentioned earlier, they had that dynamic with the Wolfpack where he was the captain, and now he's kind of the unofficial captain of the younger players on the New York Rangers. And I know some fans hear that and they think like, oh, great job by the guys wearing the letters, to lead these young guys, where Jonny Brodzinski instead has to step up and do it. I hear what you're saying, but be that as it may, great job by Jonny Brodzinski stepping up in that role. Number 3, we're going to go with Matt Rempe, and I think he would be a great choice. Rempe's got a very good chance of winning this thing because he's a very popular player among the Ranger fans. Certainly the young crowd, they tend to really gravitate toward Matt Rempe. I did the charity game, the Shoulder Check Showcase over the summer. It's a game in Stamford, Connecticut, charity game exhibition. They've got NHL players there. They've got like YouTube personalities and whatnot partaking in this game. It's really a cool thing. And Matt Rempe was there. No joke. Matt Rempe would have stayed there all day if that's what it took to get every single fan and every single kid an autograph and a selfie and whatever they wanted. I watched him start on one side because they have it roped off, the area where the players go in. And, some players hang out for a little while. They sign autographs. They take a couple of pictures and, but they don't stay there as long as Rempe did. And I'm not knocking any of the other players, but when a player goes above and beyond like that and makes a connection with the fans the way that Rempe does or did on that day, and I think is done in other situations as well, that goes a long way. That's really an important thing. And I think for that reason, you're going to see him get a boatload of votes because I think people know by now how generous Matt Rempe is with his time. And he would not have left that area until every single person that wanted a selfie and an autograph got one. So that was obviously very cool to see. And again, I just feel like there's a connection there between Rempe and the fans, and he's going to get some big time votes. Sam Carrick, I've got at number 2, although I would think that he's probably not quite as strong of a candidate to win it as Matt Rempe, just from all the reasons that I just mentioned. Rempe mania last year, the way he just exploded onto the scene. And as some of you guys mentioned when we were talking about Sam Carrick during his section of this episode, he sort of just quietly does his job. He goes out there and he grinds, he battles for pucks, he can kill penalties, all that good stuff. He's very good on the faceoff circle as well. He can be kind of a pest for the opposition, and we'll occasionally see him look to mix it up, look to stir it up whenever the Rangers are doing their thing where they just kind of sleepwalk through games. We do see Sam Carrick try to light a fire. We saw that in the game against the Canucks when everything was kind of, not going the Rangers' way and they're sleepwalking through the first half of the game. There was a skirmish that involved Igor Shesterkin, and everybody kind of came together. And late in this little scrum here, we saw Carrick, it looked like, trying to bait the Canuck into a fight. It looked like he was ready and willing to drop the gloves if that's what he had to do. And I like that. And again, he's just somebody that goes out there and grinds. And something else that's impressive about Carrick, this is the exact kind of player that Ranger fans tend to not warm up to. Not because like they have anything personal against them, but you bring in just like a random journeyman UFA like this, who's around like 30 years old. I think Carrick's like 31, if I'm not mistaken. And he's just going to play on the fourth line, and Ranger fans kind of roll their eyes and like, what do we need Sam Carrick for? Because you want to see the young prospects get that opportunity, right? You want to see the Brett Berards of the world and the Brian Offmans of the world step into the lineup rather than just a random journeyman like Sam Carrick. But the fact that most Ranger fans like Carrick and that he got a lot of votes for this, I think that says a lot about how well he's played his role this season for the New York Rangers. So I think he's an outstanding choice. But the one guy that I would put above him, the one guy that got the most votes as far as, my social media posts is concerned, and the guy that I think is probably going to win the award, we will see, but that's going to be Will Cuylle. Will Cuylle was borderline carrying this team early in the season. He really had as good or better of a start to the season than anybody. And keep in mind, this feels like a lifetime ago, but the Rangers actually, maybe somewhat in spite of themselves, had a really good record at the start of the season. I think they were like 12-4-1. And if that wasn't their exact record, it's not far off. You get the idea. They stormed out of the starting blocks, and so did Will Cuylle. Will Cuylle's out there scoring goals early in the season. He's out there hitting anything that moves. As one of you pointed out, he is currently second in the league in hits. Somebody that's an exciting young player. And again, this is something that should go without saying. It should not just apply to a select few players, but he's one of the few guys on this New York Ranger team that will go out there and give you an honest effort every single night. Now he's killing penalties. We see him, if the Rangers are actually winning a game late in the game, they'll put him on the ice with a 1-goal lead. The other team pulls the goalie. He's one of the guys out there that they're relying on to keep the puck out of the net. So Cuylle's been doing it all. It's been nice to see him promoted up the lineup. And I think, for my money, he should be a top sixer for the rest of the season, maybe for the rest of his career, right? I mean, if he's here right now and it's only his second year, the sky could be the limit for Will Cuylle. And we've kind of lamented the fact that the Rangers really do have some issues when it comes to developing their own homegrown prospects. Will Cuylle might be one of the exceptions to that rule. A former second-round pick and somebody that, to me, has basically hit the ground running. Last season, as a rookie, I don't think he stood out quite as much last year as this year. But the thing that really stood out to me, and I think for some of you as well, is the very simple fact that he just didn't make any mistakes. Like, you would think sooner or later he would go through kind of like maybe a little bit of a rough patch, or, have an issue with, a bad turnover here or there. He just didn't make any mistakes. And now he's just added to that. He built a solid foundation last year, and he's added to it this year in the form of, scoring, and obviously that physicality and toughness that he's becoming very well known for and very well appreciated for. So there you have it. My pick, and I think the pick for a lot of you as well, for this season's Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award winner is indeed Will Cuylle. But we can call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.